He reaches, that ball's out, that's live! Back the other way, Sam Hubbard! The Cincinnati Kid! Hubbard's got a convoy! Chased by Andrews! At the 30, the 20, he will score!
To the end zone, down the field, and it is deflected, and gone! Touchdown! A.J. Green!
Over goes back to throw, men are coming late, looks right down the middle, there's Eddie Brown, he has it at the 35 to the 30, he may go, 10-5, touchdown!
Now the Bengals Super Bowl chances rest on his right foot. The kick is up.
Yeah.
It is good.
Corey Dillon, he's gone. The knockout punch, you're looking at it. 65 yards. And they're back to throw as the blitz is on. Goes long, intended for Collinsworth. He has it down to the 20, touchdown. And Chris Collinsworth.
Throwing the long ball. Deep down the field. Chad Johnson's got it. Touchdown, Cincinnati.
Look at Chase go! Oh my goodness, what a gear he just found! Chase for the touchdown! Wow, Chase is on the case!
It is no fluke. It is a fact. The Cincinnati Bengals are headed to Super Bowl 56. The play clock at 3. Shotgun snap. Carr throws into traffic. Intercepted. Jermaine Pratt has the football.
Yeah.
Coffin nails.
Bam, bam, bam! How about that?
Welcome in post-game Chatterbox Bengals. Jacob Tissett, Craig Sandlin, back-to-back wins for the first time this year, and boy, it feels good. There was a point in there where I was worried if I was ever going to get one, and now I have two in a row. It feels good to be on the right side of it. Feels good to pick up a division win. Feels good to win in Cleveland, because over the last few years, I wasn't sure that was ever going to happen. Jacob Tissett, Craig Sandlin, yet again, get to ask you how you're doing, and it's going to be a good answer.
You would think it would be
you
a
would
good answer.
think. Don't
but
let me down, Craig.
I'm not nearly as excited as you are. Back-to-back
fair.
wins against terrible teams, my guy.
That's
and
true.
we
You're
did
absolutely
not
right.
look good doing it. And so here we are, the Bengals, 14 points on offense this week when you take away the kick return. Obviously, last week against the Giants, offense didn't do a whole lot in that one either, only 17 points in that one, and that included a garbage touchdown that many debate whether or not it should have happened or not.
Right.
So
Right.
back-to-back weeks where this offense can't really get it going. And quite frankly, a frustrating piece that we'll talk about later is that in moments where you have to try and put a ball game away, Zach Taylor's offense unable to really do it, control the ball with limited time on the clock. Just not looking great on offense. The one shining piece that we'll talk about, obviously, the defense looked good again. I don't really know what to make of it. We'll find out more against this defense and how good they really are next week when we go up against the Philadelphia Eagles. But for today, we have what they call a winning streak, Jacob.
That's right.
And that in itself feels good.
And the Bengals box score yet again, not really as exciting as you tend to expect in a win with this team. We're used to gaudy offensive numbers when the Bengals come out on top. And yet again today, just not the best game from Joe Burrow, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns, 15 of 25 throwing the football, but enough to get the win, and that's all that matters. 15 carries for Chase Brown, really a stranglehold on that running back one position. We had that debate show after show, week after week here at the start of this season, and I think it's completely out the window now. 15 carries for him, just 6 for Zach Moss. That's 7 yards, not a great representation of what Moss was able to do today, because he did provide 3 catches for 33 yards in the receiving game as well. Both running backs, crucial pieces to this offense. Jamar Chase able to get it done both in the air and on the ground. 5 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown, and 1 carry for 11 yards, which made him the Bengals' second leading rusher. T. Higgins, 4 catches for 82 yards and a touchdown, able to get the job done when it was needed. There was a point there at the beginning, obviously, Charlie Jones opening touchdown, juices were flowing yet again. An early play to think, hey, all right, maybe this team's just going to roll. Maybe this is going to be the game where everything clicks. And then couldn't be further from that in the first half. Bailouts by Dustin Hopkins with a missed extra point and a missed field goal gave the Bengals a halftime lead. When I got the joy of talking to Chatterbox resident Browns fan, Justin Kinner, and that's what the second line on this J-Bar is. Before we really get into what went on in the game today, I think something that's really important to touch on is here at Chatterbox, we keep receipts, especially with the other people in the office. And Justin Kinner sat up on his desk hosting off the bench as he does every Monday through Friday, 10 to noon. And he guaranteed a Browns win. Big G, guarantee, Craig. What happens when your guarantees don't come through? You get reminded of them. And that's how we're starting this show off. I'm reminding Justin Kinner that he guaranteed a win, and they didn't come through. So thought that was important to get out there. We clipped it up. We got it out there right before the game started. So everyone knew which side he was on, and the Bengals able to pull out the win. Really couldn't feel much better. No conference wins going into this, and we're able to pick one up. Keeps us relevant. No one cares how the wins and losses come when you get to the end of the season. Now sitting at 3-4. This team has a little bit of life. If you look at the standings, it's not completely laughable like when they were 1-4 or even, two wins this week, still looking at the bottom of the standings. Now 3-4, it's a record that you can spin into an attackable way to get to a point where you're actually competitive. 3-4, you win 2 games, you're a game over 500, boom, we're back. It's not the 3-4-5 game win streak that we were talking about before. I think that's why this win is so big. And regardless of how good the Browns are, or I guess I should say how bad the Browns are, and Watson getting hurt early in the game and playing Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and obviously all those things come into the win and why it wasn't the prettiest win or something to even get too excited about. But that's a team in a location that the Bengals don't get the job done at. They don't beat the Browns and they don't win in Cleveland. And today they were able to do both without really superhero game from Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase or T. Higgins or anything along those lines. It was kind of just the team doing what the team needed to do to get a win. And that's why, again, after the Giants game, I'm reassured because 2 weeks ago, these aren't games I think the Bengals win.
Yeah, and look, we went into the last 2 weeks and we talked about how the Bengals really just needed to put a stamp on the next 2 games and really come out. And I felt like the defense really has shown that they have stepped up, and the defensive front line is a big piece of that. We saw it again today with a healthy front line. They can get pressure on this quarterback. They did it today several times. Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and then again, Jameis Winston at the end. All game long, they were pressuring. And again, when you can do that, we talked about it last week. We talked about it during the week. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, again later, is that when you get pressure on the quarterback, it takes a lot of that pressure off of your secondary that the secondary had been feeling early on this season. And so that's the biggest point that continues to be a shining point for me as we talk about this defense, is that this defense isn't the same defense that we had for the first 4 weeks. And while they're doing this against not great offenses, they're still doing it with a now healthy front line. And that ultimately has been the Achilles heel. Sorry for bringing that up this week, but that's been the Achilles heel of this defense, is that the front 4 outside of Trey Hendrickson wasn't doing anything. And so now you get Sheldon Rankins back. You've got Miles Murphy back. You've got all these guys, BJ Hill, who are playing up to snuff on this defensive line, taking a lot of that pressure off of the secondary. And so I do feel a little bit more confident about that. Obviously tough to see Geno Stone go down today. We'll talk about that later as well. But again, it just, this is a bad Browns offense that you shouldn't allow to score a whole lot.
Right.
And, to be fair, this is the other piece I want to point out, is that this is back-to-back weeks now where this defense has had pass interference in the end zone that has led to a touchdown. And when you go up against good teams, you can't have that. So
that's right.
Still learning opportunities, still, a chance to continue to get better, but overall, optimistic about the direction that this defense is going in right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in our chat right now sharing the same sentiment you have, where we just beat the Giants and the Browns. Let's not get too excited. Sean Connor said, just a simple case where a superior team with a superior roster wins the football game. You're absolutely right. And that's true. But how many times have we seen the same team and same roster lose to teams that are inferior on paper, or at least, just not get the win? I mean, we look back at this Patriots game. Patriots are the worst team in the league. They made a switch to Drake May, and they looked better, and they're still the worst team in the league. We lost to Jacoby Brissett at home. You can't tell me any position on the Patriots is better than the Bengals on paper, and that's what we're talking about right here, on paper. We're a better team on paper than the Browns and Giants. You still have to play the game, and the Bengals went out there and got the win, and I've seen time and time again this team not be able to do that when Joe's not on 100%. This is back-to-back weeks where he's not full Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase isn't going 150 yards or whatever it is, and we're still able to come out on top. And I think it is, and again, you touched on it there with Geno Stone, we're back to an injured defense, trying to cross our fingers that replacements can play at a high level, but I think we really did just ultimately overlook injuries when talking about this defense for 3 weeks. B.J. Hill missed 2 games. Sheldon Rankins missed 3 games. Chris Jenkins wasn't healthy at the start of the season. McKinley Jackson was on the IR to start the year. All these guys getting healthy at the major position of need, maybe we should have realized, all right, Duke Tobin's not the best. I don't think anyone's super excited about Duke Tobin this year. I also don't think Duke Tobin sat on his hands all offseason where we all said the interior D-line was terrible and didn't do anything. He used 2 draft picks and a major free agency signing on 3 guys that weren't in there when that interior defense looked so bad. Now they're back in there, and it looks really pretty good. I mean, I know Nick Chubb coming off an injury, you can't necessarily say he's a full speed or anything like that today, but full enough speed to lead the Browns in carries. 11 carries for Chubb today. No one else on the Browns over 5, so they obviously have confidence in him, giving him the rock. And he had just 2 yards per carry. 11 carries for 22 yards for a guy that has ran all over the Bengals his entire career. I continue to see things with this defense that make me really, really confident as we go on, and the back end just gets younger, and that's what we continue to talk about. Is there's just not a lot of experience back there. Luckily, I know we've kind of ragged on him a lot this year, but you never want to see guys get hurt. Depth is important. Starters are important, and to see Von Bell get back up and be back out on the field, I think is crucial, because we heard Lou Anarumo a few years ago talk about how crucial it would be to lose both safeties. Obviously, at that point, Jesse Bates, and closer to a prime version of Von Bell, a little bit more impactful than Geno Stone in this version of Von Bell, but still, losing 2 safeties on the same play going into a game next week against a team like the Eagles with elite weapons on the outside would have been detrimental. Obviously, losing Geno Stone is really, really bad news for the Bengals, and something that you hope isn't as bad as it looked, but certainly didn't look pretty, and with him being ruled out immediately with the air cast on the cart, not great for the immediate future. So great to see Von Bell back in there, and have to assume it's going to be Jordan Battle, because he did take the snaps right away after Stone went out. But earlier in this year, we did see Dejon Anthony play a lot more than Battle against the Chiefs. Wonder if he'll get more snaps as well. Probably a committee situation there at safety. We'll probably see both 33 and 27 if I had to guess, Craig.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Josh Newton actually got some snaps at strong safety today as well. So I think it'll be situational. We've seen them go situational a little bit over the last couple of weeks as it was. And so I do think that'll be something that this Bengals team will have to figure out. Is Jordan Battle ready to step up and play significant snaps? Or are they going to need to go, by committee based on situation? I guess we will find out. You've been pining for Jordan Battle all year. So,
I know. This isn't how I wanted to get him. This is not how I wanted to get him.
Don't want to have it happen this way, but this is a guy who ranked 2nd in the NFL against the run last year. And it's coming for a team that has, over the course of this year, really struggled against the run. Coming into today, I think they were ranked 26th in the NFL against the run. And so, it definitely has the opportunity to be a net positive overall. You'll potentially miss some coverage on the back end, though, which will be interesting to kind of see as they face a quarterback in Jalen Hurts next week and what that means for this defense. But one other guy I wanted to call out that kept jumping out to me when I was watching the game, I don't know about you, is Joseph Asai. Felt like he had his best game of the year today. PFF grades came out already Joseph Asaya 68.0 against the run today. Certainly a big improvement for a guy who we've talked about time and time again, needed to step up and needed to get better. And he seemed like he did that today.
Yeah, another guy on defense that really jumped out to me today was Jermaine Pratt. Seemed to be everywhere on the field, really filling holes and making plays behind the line of scrimmage more often than not. It was 13 tackles today for Pratt, and 10 of those were solo. That's a great play by an off-ball linebacker, really just being all over the field. Anytime you get up to a double-digit level of solo tackles, you know you had a crazy good day. Logan Wilson, 10 tackles as well, 6 of those solo. Still putting himself in a good spot to lead the league in tackles, second coming into this week. So good play by those linebackers. It's been an up-and-down year for those two guys that we've already locked up long-term, two guys that are unquestioned leaders of this defense, and certainly nice to see them playing a little bit better football right now. Crucial as we continue to lose guys in the back end and the defensive line plays better. If those two guys in the middle can take a step and get back to, and we say it all the time, it sounds like a broken record if you go back and watch the other shows because we say it every time, but if they can get back to what we thought they were going to get to, or the way they were trending when we offered those contract extensions, when we locked up Pratt and Wilson, if they can get back to that point, then it's not going to be nearly as big of a deal to lose a Dax Hill and a Geno Stone, because you're going to have a much more impactful defensive line now that they're healthy and making a difference. I mean, we've already seen how great not that he wasn't great before, but how great Trey Hendrickson is now that not everyone can just key in on him. You have to respect BJ Hill. You have to respect Sheldon Rankins. Miles Murphy's made a couple big-time plays. A PBU today and a seatbelt celebration for the first-round D lineman. That was a lot of fun. That was fun to see. So I think just generally with the Bengals defense now, the whole thing we said through the first 3 weeks was just be average. If you get to league average, I think this team can win a lot of games. And then now the defense seems to have gotten to even better than average, and the offense has disappeared, and that's kind of what I want to take it to next. Last week, I asked you after the game against the Giants about the offense and where your level of concern was, and I think we were kind of in the same boat where it was just, they'll figure it out. Joe Burrow is going to be fine. I have faith in Jamar and T and all of them to be okay, and a 10-point game against the Giants was going to be an outlier. And then today you turn around and you score 14 points. Back-to-back weeks, under 20 points for the offense. After 3 consecutive 30-point games before that, I don't want to say I'm worried about the offense, but 2 games in a row, it's certainly starting to become a trend.
Well, I think we need to acknowledge that this team just isn't very good at running the football. And when you can't establish the run, it makes it really easy for defenses to stop you. And, today it felt like early on they were trying to establish the run. You had a Chase Brown long run that got called back due to a potential holding call on Cordell Volson, similar to the one that he had last week, where it felt like he really won the block but was called for a hold. And he had another one later on in the game that went for like 22, I think, that got called back. So, ultimately that number could have looked a lot different. But what stands out to me is that when you look at the final stats, and keep in mind that a number of these came on the last 2 drives, but you end up with 25 passes and 25 rushes on the day. Yeah. And for me, I certainly would like to see a more balanced offense. I realize that I think 7 or 8 of those carries came on the last 2 drives, which I got to be honest with you is extremely frustrating when you have the ball. Let's see, they got the ball with 4 minutes and 50 seconds left. No, they gave it back with 4:50. They got the ball with 8:34, ran less than 4 minutes off the clock, gave it back to the Browns. And then they get the ball back with 4:04, run for 0, run for -3, run for 1. Evan McPherson, no good on the field goal. So those 2 drives right there where you have a chance to really just eat a bunch of clock, put the game away, you would certainly expect you to run the ball, and they did it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times on that last 2 drives. So, it would be nice for them to be able to just milk a clock every once in a while. It doesn't feel like they, it's weird because I'm gonna say one thing and then I'm gonna say the other. Like, I want them to put a dagger in the Browns in that scenario. And if you're not going to put the dagger in the Browns, then that's fine. But you have to be able to pick up a first down. Right. And they didn't do either one of them. Yeah. And so, it's just frustrating time and time again to see this Bengals offense kind of sputter when it has an opportunity to put teams away. This game started with a bang. Charlie Jones returns the opening kickoff for a touchdown. The Browns go 3 and out, and you're like, all right, here we go. Time to really just put the pedal to the metal and knock the Browns out. And what happens? The Bengals go 3-and-out on their next drive too. So just overall, I'm not loving what I'm seeing from the offense right now. Certainly recognize that Burrow probably missed Mike Gesicki there on that second drive, had him for a first down. But it still comes back to the same old story where this Bengals offense, when needed, just doesn't have what it takes to really put teams away. And that's one thing when you're going up against trash teams like the Giants and the Browns. But when you're playing your quality divisional opponents like the Ravens and like maybe the Steelers and the Eagles next week, and the list goes on and on. They've got the Chargers, they've got the Steelers, the Cowboys. They're going to have tight games that they're going to need to be able to put away. And right now it doesn't feel like they have that ability to just put the game away when it matters.
These last 2 weeks, like you said, the inability to put it away with the lead has made me kind of look back and see that maybe there could have been signs of this earlier in the season when we weren't willing to blame the offense at all, where we were completely focused on the defense. And notably, I'm talking about the Chiefs and Ravens game, because at the end of both of those games, there was also an opportunity for the offense to put it away. In the Chiefs game, having already scored 25 points, and the Ravens game scoring 38 in regulation, there was really no place for anger at the offense or really discussion about the offense. It was all about the defense and what needed to be fixed to get this team back to a championship contender level, because it looked like the offense was there, but at the end of the games, they weren't able to get the job done then either. And we're seeing it happen again at the end of these closer games against worse teams that we're playing. It's still the same kind of thing. It feels like Chase Brown's a really, really good running back, and I love having him in our offense. He's incredibly explosive. I think he's doing great things with the ball in his hands. It feels like as soon as teams know he's going to run, he's borderline useless. Stacked boxes, Zach Moss is the only one that gets a yard or two after contact and falls through. I mean, Chase Brown sometimes can reverse it and bounce out and find open space. Sure, I've seen it time and time again for sure. But it feels like on running downs, Chase Brown is not a guy for it. And he's been great this year. I just don't think he's the answer on running downs. And when you have a guy that's going to be your lead back and you're going to take him out of the game on short yardage and run first downs, I'm not entirely sure how great that backfield setup is. I mean, 15 carries for Brown today, just 6 for Moss. A lot of those 6 carries for Moss were on short yardage plays. How predictable is this Bengals run game right now?
Well,
Between the two, I mean.
Sure. Look, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because I haven't seen the chart. I haven't seen some of the things that I would typically like to see before I make these final assumptions. But here's what I will say is that it felt like multiple times they were running behind Cody Ford in those scenarios. And it's one thing if you are running behind a player in Orlando Brown who's playing at an all-pro level, and you're trusting him to open up holes. Amarius Mims is not a great run blocker. We've talked about that on this show before, and I don't think I've ever seen this before. PFF grades are in for this game already. Cody Ford on the run block, a 38.2, which is low enough in itself. A pass block grade, 36 snaps, 16 of which were pass blocks, 3.9.
That's good stuff.
3.9.
That's good stuff, Cody.
Single
there we go.
Grade. I literally didn't know that was possible.
That's insane.
Literally didn't know it was possible.
That's insane.
We talked about this Bengals decision to go with Cody Ford as their primary backup, not to address this offensive line when Trent Brown went down. And now, without knowing the status of Orlando Brown, obviously the reports came in that he was doubtful. First of all, he was questionable. Then it changed to doubtful. Felt like maybe he could come in an emergency if someone got hurt, whatever it may have been. Obviously, the Bengals' number one hope has to be that Orlando Brown is okay and can come back next week and play. But if that's not the case, even if it is the case, maybe I cannot fathom continuing to move forward with Cody Ford as your only backup option on the offensive line on the outside. So Chase Brown had let's see, multiple tackles in the backfield, 2 of which were to the left side. You know, I don't know what he's supposed to do in those scenarios. So back to your original question, like, I don't know. I need to watch the video before I decide that Chase Brown isn't a first and second down running back. What I do know is that this is not a first and second down offensive line. That's going to be a problem that this Bengals team has to figure out, because you absolutely cannot go into next week with Cody Ford as your starting left tackle going up against this Eagles front that's going to get Hassan Reddick back now after he signed his contract today.
Jets,
my fault.
Hassan Reddick, point. Eagles last year.
Still
Jets
can't go. Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. No, you are right.
Up against them.
You are right. No, this Eagles front is no joke, and having Orlando Brown miss that game would certainly not be ideal. He was in pads all game. He was on the sidelines in his shoulder pads and jersey all game. Usually a good sign in that sense if they're not changing into street clothes. So losing Geno Stone at the end of the game, have to hope that we dodge another O-line bullet. Obviously lost Demarius Mims earlier this year for a little bit of time. He was even carted off the field and then came back in that very game. So the Bengals have gotten very lucky on the offensive line already, dodging some big-time injuries. So hopefully another bit of luck here with Orlando Brown going down in this one. But at the end of the day, the offense does just have to be better. They just had 14 points against the Browns, and the Browns defense is this vaunted group, and they're a good group with a lot of really good players. But this defense this year, at least statistically through 6 weeks, is not what they were in the past. 14 points against this Browns defense. I know it says 21, but that was a kick return touchdown by Charlie Jones to open the game. 14 points by this offense against the 2024 Browns defense is not nearly the same feeling as scoring 14 points against the Browns defense of last year or the year before. This is not nearly as strong of a unit. Still a good unit, not nearly as strong of a unit. Needed to see more from the offense. Certainly hoped that they were going to take a step today after a lackluster game against the Giants, but we won, and that's what matters. Wins are wins, sitting now in relative striking distance to the playoffs, 3-4 now in the AFC, and sitting in that 9th slot behind the 4-3 Broncos, 4-3 Colts, 3-2 Chargers, and 4-2 Pittsburgh Steelers for the AFC wild card. And I know we do it all the time when we look at those standings, but none of the teams I just listed have a quarterback like Joe Burrow. And I know in the last 2 weeks the offense might not have looked great, but I'm very, very confident picking the Bengals over most of those non-division champions, all of those non-division champions in the current AFC setup. So if the Bengals can keep stacking wins, I've said it time and time again when looking forward at the Bengals schedule, you got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat, because you're not going to be favored in every game the rest of the way, and you don't have room to slip up. If you're going to lose the games that you're quote-unquote supposed to lose, you got to take care of the teams you're supposed to take care of, and today was one of those, and they did. Even though it wasn't pretty and we started sweating a little bit at the end with an onside kick, they took care of business and got a 7-point win on the road in the division, and that's tough. And that's the biggest thing. 1-1 now in the AFC North. The AFC North has plagued the Bengals seemingly for a while now. Obviously back-to-back division champions a few years ago, but last year not pretty in the North, and something that a lot of fans were focused on this year. Have to take care of business against the division rivals. Fell in overtime to the Ravens earlier this year. How important is picking up this win in Cleveland, not just to get back into the playoff hunt, but to try to shift the tide of this interstate rivalry and kind of just how AFC North games had started to be going for us?
I mean, you have to start somewhere, right?
Right,
and
right.
Ultimately, this team needed to get on track, and it needed to string together a couple wins.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talked about it 2 weeks ago. I realistically still believe that they still need to win the next 3 for me to even be all the way back into believing that this might be a playoff team.
That's fair.
But look, I mean, the biggest thing is that you get the monkey off of Joe's back. You get the monkey off of Zach Taylor's back. He was 0-5 in Cleveland coming into this week. Bengals hadn't won there since 2017 or whatever it was. And the struggle is that you continue to struggle on offense in Cleveland. We talked about it coming into this week. The Bengals, in their last 5 visits to Cleveland, averaged 4 points in the first half of those games and didn't do much better today.
Right.
0 for 6 on third down conversions in the first half. and just didn't play very well. Now, how much of that is mental and how much of that is just, the matchup doesn't play well for Cincinnati? I don't know. But you've got the monkey off of your back now, and you've got an opportunity to go hopefully on a little bit of a run. And you get the Eagles at home in what is shaping up to be one of the biggest games of the stretch. And, you've got a big crowd that'll be on hand. I believe it's a whiteout. So, let's hope that the jungle is rocking and that the Bengals can use that. Did I see that Devontae Smith went down today, or did he just not?
I did not. I did not
get any. Okay. He may just not have gotten a lot of action. I think he had one catch for -2 yards today. So didn't know if he got hurt or what happened. So
obviously the Eagles are on deck, but Raiders in the hole, and there was a big injury for the Raiders today. Aiden O'Connell got hurt, and Gardner Minshew back in at quarterback for them. So big questions about who the Bengals will be facing in 2 weeks, but sorry to interrupt. Obviously, the Eagles next week, top priority.
Yeah, for sure. And Jalen Hurts is a dynamic quarterback.
That's
and we
right.
saw what DTR did today as a mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
We saw what Jaden Daniels did as a mobile quarterback against this defense. So Lou Anarumo has his work cut out for him this week to put in a game plan that, the Eagles can beat you in so many different ways. Saquon Barkley on the ground, Jalen Hurts on the air and on the ground. AJ Brown is one of the best wide receivers in the game. We'll see if Dallas Goedert plays or not. I think he was out today, but
he was.
It's a big game, and it'll go a long way in terms of confidence for this team if they can pick up that W. Today certainly helped. But the last 2 wins are against not great football teams. Let's see what they can do against a decent team in the Philadelphia Eagles.
For sure. Big test, and on a stretch where the Bengals aren't playing necessarily their best football, but finally stacking some wins. We'll see which way they go this week. Do they go back to scoring 30 and we're sweating 38-35, or is it going to be 14-17? Either way, as long as we have more points than Philly on Sunday, I'll be fine with it. But before we get out of here, that's the last of the Bengals stuff I want to touch on. But obviously Deshaun Watson went down with the Achilles injury. I just want to see what your thoughts are on who you think is going to be the Browns quarterback down the stretch the rest of this year. 1-5, 1-6 now is Cleveland. Certainly season over in terms of any kind of playoff or divisional aspirations, but DTR didn't look that inspiring, and an injury at the end had Winston, the emergency third quarterback, come into the game, and he led a touchdown drive there at the end. So would you expect to see more DTR, Winston, or an outside hire in Cleveland?
No, I the way I read the fact that DTR was their backup today was that they were anticipating potentially needing to move away from Deshaun Watson anyway.
I thought so too.
And they wanted to see what DTR could do. And I don't think they anticipated needing to turn to DTR in the way that they did, but I do think that they anticipated potentially seeing what DTR could do this week against the Bengals in potentially an audition for what was the future. Now they're put in a position where they don't have a choice. They have to go DTR or Jameis Winston. My gut tells me that this Browns team needs to make a decision on what the future is at the quarterback position, regardless of the Deshaun Watson injury. And for a front office who reportedly believes pretty strongly in DTR, I find it hard to believe that you would go in a different direction other than allowing DTR to get snaps under his belt.
That's fair.
And really get him an opportunity to play meaningful football games. He's only played really in 3 football games that mattered. He picked up the win last year against the Steelers, did drop 2 games as well last year, went 1-2. But, I think that's probably the direction they go. I think you have a healthy Nick Chubb that can take some of the pressure off of DTR by carrying the load a little bit more. But I think a combination of DTR with Nick Chubb in the backfield kind of gives the Browns a decent opportunity to, at very minimum, make a decision on what they need to do long term. I would not be surprised if Deshaun Watson is not part of this Browns team past this year.
Wow.
I think that it's in economic terms, it's a sunk cost. You're paying that money either way. You've got to put your team in the best position to win. And it's very clear that Deshaun Watson was not that. So, whether it's DTR or Jameis Winston, my gut tells me that next year we'll start with somebody else under center other than Deshaun Watson, whether that's a draft pick, whether that's DTR, or whether that's a free agent will remain to be seen. But I think that for the remainder of this year, you have to go and see what you have with DTR, and then you can make your assessment what you do this offseason based on what you see out of him for the remainder of this season.
I would 100% agree. I don't know what you're going to see out of Jameis Winston that makes you confident in him being your quarterback for the future. And sitting at 1-6, your season's already over in terms of 2024. So get DTR out there, see what you have. Maybe you strike gold, but it's the same thing I keep saying with Pittsburgh. You have 2 quarterbacks on a 1-year deal. Russell Wilson is not going to be your long-term solution. Maybe Justin Fields could be. I don't know why you wouldn't rock with the guy that could benefit your team more often. I would fully expect to see DTR when the Bengals face the Browns again later this season. I think he's going to be their quarterback, and I don't know if he's much worse than Watson. I don't know if anyone is. He's certainly not a great NFL quarterback at this point in his young career, but the Browns are going to be maybe about 100 times more fun to watch now with DTR playing quarterback instead of Deshaun Watson. So that's a positive for football fans everywhere, as we're tuned into Red Zone and all that good stuff. And you get to see a little bit of electricity in Cleveland because we were watching the worst 6-week offense we've ever seen with Deshaun Watson at the helm. So an Achilles injury for Watson today has him out for the remainder of the season. Jameis Winston, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the 2 quarterbacks currently on the Browns roster. We'll see which way they go from here. But the Bengals faced all 3 today in Cleveland and were able to come out with a win, advance to 3-4 on the season, pick up their first win in the division and their first win in the conference. These are a lot more fun when we're on top, Craig. I would like a prettier win, but ugly wins are more fun than pretty losses. I'll tell you that right now. So for this edition of Chatterbox Bengals, unless you have anything else that you would like to add on to the end, we'll look at the charts, we'll look at the film, and we'll come back Tuesday.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is that the Browns don't have another quarterback on their roster. So
right.
There's not one on the practice squad. They're going to have to go out and sign somebody this week, regardless of what their plans are for that practice squad or for that emergency third. But we'll see. And like you said, at 1-6, if you put DTR out there and you find out he's not the worst or he's not the guy, then worst case scenario is you end up with a top 5 draft pick,
a better quarterback.
You have an opportunity to pick another quarterback.
Right.
So, look, I'm looking forward to watching this tape. Like I said, there were some things that stood out to me while I was watching that I want to go back and watch a little bit more detailed on. And then, just, a lot of thoughts out to Geno Stone, and didn't look good for him. So hope that he has a speedy recovery and whatever that may be. And then obviously same thing out to Orlando Brown. Hope that he can bounce back quickly. So
for sure, absolutely. Injuries never pretty, especially for 2 guys that preseason we absolutely thought were going to be key pieces to this team. So hopefully they can get back soon. But Bengals pick up their 3rd win of the week or of the season. 3-4 now, trying to claw back to playoff relevance. For Jacob Tissett, for Craig Sandlin, that's Week 7 postgame. Thank you for everyone for tuning in today. Make sure you like the stream on your way out. And come back Tuesday night at 6 p.m. when we'll break down the film and get a little bit more in-depth about what exactly happened up in Cleveland today. Bengals get the win. Good vibes on this fine Sunday. Tune in tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on Chatterbox Sports for Off the Bench, hosted by Justin Kinner, noted Browns fan, so should be a fun one. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time.